Kathleen Wilson has been on Charleston City Council since 2005, and next week Tuesday, she's asking voters of District 12 to give her another chance. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with Kathleen one-on-one, and be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Kathleen, it is so good to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
I appreciate this. Well, let me pick off where you left off with Charlie James and WTMA just a few seconds ago.
Sure.
You talked about the headline news, which is you sent the email apparently to the Save James Island folks that's basically say, hey, sit down, shut up, let me tell you what's going on James Island.
Right, right.
How did we get here?
How did we get here? Well, we take a group that started out as a collaborative and a communicative group. I worked with them. We both had a very common interest, especially in the gathering place.
Okay.
And stopping that, or legally because we couldn't, how do we modify it? How do we get the best outcome? Well, over months and months, that relationship has gone from that collaboration to control. If I don't do what that group wants, then I become the bad guy. And I'm looking at people who are not residents of District 12, who are not residents of the city of Charleston, and who want to make city policy.
What is that policy in your mind?
That policy is establishing how we will set up our zoning codes, how we will conduct business as a city. And I have a responsibility to the city first and foremost. And not that the city is always right. I do battle with them on a regular basis. But nevertheless, it's not right for an outside group with no attachment to the city, no residency, to come on in and say, this is what you're going to do, and if you don't, then we will be angry with you.
Let me go back to that interview, because I was listening to it while you were talking to him on the phone, and you basically say you don't deny the email. Obviously, this particular article has appeared in the paper for, I guess, 48 hours. Who is Kathleen Wilson now?
Same person I've always been. I'm a straight shooter. I'm a real straight shooter. And when something is askew, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to say something. And that's my nature. That's how it's always been. And what's so funny is many of these problems haven't even been my district. The gathering place isn't my district.
Right.
The Carmine Theater, it's not my district.
Right.
I've gone to those fights because I've been invited to, and the council member in that district needed some backup. And so, of course, I jump in. But to also be accused of fabricating information and withholding information, there are times that the planning department simply doesn't have any updates to give me. And when I was asked by that group, well, do you have any updates? No, I don't. No, you're lying. You're withholding information. We know you have updates and you're not telling us because you want to ruin James Island. That's where this has devolved.
You've been on James Island for 30 years.
Yeah.
Where are you emotionally when you hear they're saying that you're lying about information that you simply don't have?
That's the source of my anger. And also to have it publicly put on Facebook that the house was going to be empty for a week while we went away. And then to be accused of fabricating a very important once-in-a-lifetime family event because I just wanted to miss city council and not vote on a moratorium so I could destroy the island. These are the things that are posted, these are the comments, these are the email chains that go back and forth that nobody ever sees.
And you're obviously referring, as you mentioned, to Save James Island Group. I know Charlie James asked you, how do these people get power? How much power do you have?
I have plenty. And I am the sitting council member.
Right.
I make very good decisions for my district. Social media, of course, is rampant. And American politics is probably some of the ugliest in the world. So there's no big surprise. You know, I've always said Facebook is going to be the downfall of Western civilization.
And I know that you said the same Save James Island Group fights everything. What should they be fighting for?
Wise development. We are not going to stop development. We cannot strip property owners of rights, nor does the government want to start, I certainly don't want the government to start monitoring private land transactions. So we have to look at best outcomes, and we have to look at zonings, and we have to look at standards, and we have to close loopholes, we have to up standards. For example, with drainage.
Right.
I'm a big proponent, if you build a development and you impact somebody else negatively, that's on you. And you've got to go back and fix that. Or, you know, that may be you may owe whomever you have impacted, you may owe them damages, but get it fixed. We see things like that, and these all have to be checked, these all have to be modified. I want to see stormwater increased,
Right.
or those standards. I want to see zoning loopholes cut off and closed, and there is work that we can do, but it has to be targeted, it has to be specific, and it has to be good, well-reasoned work, rather than a carte blanche, never again will there be development.
Let me go to that target. You talk about the zoning loopholes. What are they?
Well, of course, we saw that the crux of the apartment moratorium, the fact that our commercial zonings carry a residential element.
Right.
And developers were targeting strictly the residential portion and leaving out all commercial in commercial zonings. Therefore, we had great density in residential form minus the commercial, which throws the island out of balance. It's what causes some of these apartment complexes to spring up. So that needs to be modified in order to keep the island in balance and to keep a development in good balance with itself. And mixed use. That's an obvious loophole. Let's decrease the residential, let's increase the amount of commercial. Another one is clustering. And what clustering is, for example, if you have a 10-acre a parcel of land,
Right.
and you want to put 40 homes, you can spread those 40 homes out over the 10 acres, or you can condense them into smaller lot sizes in one aspect of that lot. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if it saves a bunch of grand trees, or it's a little nicer to look at. But we've reached a point where the clustering is so tight that we're looking at almost at townhouses rather than single family. It needs to be a special exemption rather than a given in the zoning.
And I know that when you talked with Charlie James a few minutes ago, you basically said the Save James Island group wants James Island to be more urban.
No, that's the Livability
Excuse me,
Pact. Yes, because we have two very divergent groups right now. And this is what's so interesting. And as I told Mr. James,
Right.
we have basically 3 council member seats for sale right now
You said that.
through this Livability Pact, which are actively funding candidates. They promote a more dense, more urban lifestyle. And that isn't necessarily what the best solution is for James Island, because we are limited as far as where we can grow. We are very limited with infrastructure. We simply don't have room to build new roads or upgrade a lot of our current roads. Yes, Folly Road is under some renovation and the whole Rethink Folly plan, but it's not going to get any wider, nor will Camp Road or
Right.
Fort Johnson.
Right.
So we have to work with what we have, and we have to be realistic about that. Plus the nature of the island. They've sent a very strong message to me saying, please don't keep building dense apartment complexes. And I've taken that message to heart and done everything I can to try and prevent that from happening over and over.
Okay, you said the 2 groups, the Livability group and Save James Island.
Right.
If it could, let's say, if it would come to push to shove, who would you actually work with?
Well, I'd probably start with my colleagues on council.
Okay.
I really would. I simply cannot be controlled by either entity.
Okay.
I will not allow my seat to be bought, and I will not allow myself to be controlled by a special interest group or a Facebook group. I have to have the flexibility and the good judgment, and I've exercised very good judgment on that island to make correct decisions.
And I know that you basically said, hey, I've worked with the town of James Island before and I'll work with them again.
Absolutely.
What would be your first question to Mayor Woosley and the council right now?
How do we work together? What do you see? How do we work together to continue to solve some of these problems, especially drainage? Water does not recognize municipal boundaries. And so when we have a street that's flooded, that's partially town, partially city, how do we craft the best outcome? We are actively working to have an island-wide drainage study done,
Right.
which I think is great, and that's going to involve the town, the county, and the city. And that'll be a start. That'll tell us where we stand, identify the spots that need fixing.
And there's another group out there that apparently has some issues with you, because when I actually put it on Facebook that I'm going to interview you this morning, Charleston is Filled group said this.
Oh,
Ask her why a mouthpiece for the developer lobby is running her campaign, and why she is taking thousands from developers while supposedly being anti-development. Your answer?
I haven't taken thousands from developers. Please go through my ethics report.
Okay.
This is one person, I think I know who it is, who is a little out of control. It's an offshoot of what's going on James Island. As for a developer, no. I have somebody who is assisting me because I can't do all of this work myself. I don't have the computer skills
Okay.
and the graphics to design a mailing.
Okay.
And that person lives in Massachusetts
Ooh.
and has for several years. Has Charleston ties but lives in Massachusetts.
Ooh. Okay. Let me. This is interesting. Oh boy, politics. You know, I never get involved with this, but oh my God, this is crazy. Okay, let me go back to the Post Inquiry article that says this: "Sit down and shut up. Councilwomen sent insulting email to woman behind Save James Island." If you were to go back in July and basically rewrite the email, what would you say differently?
I'd still express the same thoughts and probably tone it down a little bit. But again, it goes back to very erroneously being accused of withholding information, which I simply don't do. And baseless accusations. And telling me that I'm fabricating my daughter's naval aviation winging ceremony. I'm making that up so I can get out of council and miss a vote, so I can destroy James Island. This is where that thinking goes to. That's not sound, stable thinking. And if anything, I am a sound and stable representative.
Kathleen Wilson, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Yeah.